We need a mixing bowl. Either a 3 or a 5 quart will be better. We need a sifter or strainer to sift the flour. We need a cast iron skillet, at least 10.5 inches, a measuring cup, some sort of oil. It can be Wesson oil, Crisco, or butter. We need buttermilk, sweet milk, and self-rising flour. Doesn't matter what brand. Before we start this process, we need to set our oven to 450 degrees. First, we sift 8 to 10 cups of flour into our mixing bowl. We actually sift the flour twice. The first time is before we make the biscuits to make sure there are no lumps and to aerate the flour so that it's light and fluffy. And then when we're finished, there will be flour left over that we'll sift again, and this flour can be used again. With your hand, make a well into the flour, into the center of the flour, so that you have as much workspace as possible in there. Then we'll take our oil and oil the skillet. And then we'll add approximately 2 or 3 tablespoons of our oil into the flour well. Before we touch any of our food, we wash our hands vigorously, as though we were doctors about to perform surgery. Then we measure our milk. I use 3/4 cup of buttermilk and 3/4 cup of sweet milk mixed together. So what we're doing here is taking our fingers and moving them usually in a clockwise motion, but sometimes in a counterclockwise motion. And as we're dredging our fingers through the milk, we're getting into the flour underneath, and we're pulling a little bit of flour at the time into the milk so that we're forming a batter. And as we pull more flour in, this batter's getting thicker and thicker. What we're looking for is a thick pudding-like batter. At the point that our batter is thick enough, then we start pulling it from the sides. We catch it from around the side and pull it toward the center. This also brings more flour into the batter. You don't want to pull it too fast. You need to take your time during this process. Pull the flour in a little bit at a time. Otherwise, your biscuits won't be as light and fluffy. If you're in a rush, you can hurry the process a little bit, but I wouldn't try to be too fast. Not if you want good, light, flaky, fluffy biscuits. So, when our dough gets to a certain point where it starts to have a clean surface and it doesn't look quite so ragged anymore, we keep folding for a short time until it is very smooth. At this point, we need to clean the dough off our fingers and go and wash our hands again. So we take our other hand and clean the dough off our fingers, which we can then work into the batter. We don't want to throw that away. You can see how the dough is getting very smooth on the sides, and we keep pulling it toward the center. And then we take the entire thing, when we've got a smooth ball, and turn it upside down in the flour. And then with clean hands, we put a little flour in our palms, and then we start working the dough so that we smooth it even more. Kind of work it into a cylindrical shape, so that we can start pinching off part of it. About the size of an egg is what we're looking for. And as we get them smooth, we put them into the pan and pat them gently. You don't want to mash them, but you pat them gently in the pan. And continue. And with a cup and a half of milk, we'll get approximately 15 to 17 biscuits, depending on how big they are. And when you're finished, now don't crowd them. If you have to use a separate pan, that would be fine too. We want a hot oven when we put the biscuits in. And we can set our timer to approximately 20 minutes. It depends on how hot your oven cooks. They're not all set the same, but approximately 20 minutes, you'll have golden brown biscuits that you're ready to serve. Just turn them out onto a plate, and you're ready to eat biscuits.